Hello guys, welcome to this video. We're going to be talking about a mental framework called skill stacking. So this is a concept that you can use to separate yourself through continuous learning on different skills. So this is really valuable as a visual effects artist, I think, to see different skills that you should focus on and see how you can combine different skills to sort of make yourself unique in a market where lots of people have visual effects skills. So that's what we're talking about in this video. It applies to many different things, not just visual effects. So I think it's a very, very useful framework. And I like to develop these frameworks for myself to operate within, and I find them very useful. So hopefully that'll be useful for you. And we can jump on to the next slide and explain exactly what we're talking about here. So if we jump to the next one, this is what a skill stack is. So this would be like my skill stack, I suppose. So usually what I recommend to people when they ask for advice, what should I focus on, what should I learn? My advice is to not spread yourself super thin on learning all kinds of things at once. My advice generally is to specialize and then diversify on things that might interest you later, because it's easier to get a job as a specialist in something than just to learn everything at once and sort of spreading yourself too thin. So essentially, if we look at my skill stack here and how I illustrated this, like compositing is at the very top. I feel very comfortable like talking about this, and I feel that I have a lot of expertise in this, and the very adjacent concepts as well. Like these are things I'm very comfortable with, like lighting and photography are very closely related to compositing. So generally when you're learning something like compositing, for example, it can be any other topic or subject, but you want to think about what are the most closely related topics and focus on those as well. So typically it's good for a compositor to learn a bit of photography and lighting at the same time because it's very closely related. So it wouldn't be the best thing, in my opinion, to be focusing on things like rigging if you're a compositor. Like I have a little bit of base knowledge there, but it's not something that interests me too much. If you're a visual effects supervisor, maybe you need to know a little bit more just broadly on every single topic. But this is what I would say in terms of my general philosophy is focus on a specialty skill, become really, really good at it. The market values specialists. It's easier to get a job, in my opinion, as a specialist in something. So become a specialist in something like compositing, and then start acquiring these adjacent skills, and then you can focus on other skills later on if you want to. So other skills come in later, and they can be really valuable to combine if you've become a specialist in something. So for example, like things I'm learning right now, I'm always learning on all these topics here, but essentially like I'm focusing on directing and filming and storytelling. So hopefully you'll see some of those things come into the content in this channel later this year and the next years. So that's kind of how I'm thinking about it. But first, I focused on getting good, really good at one thing, which was compositing. So we'll jump on to the next slide here. So essentially with each skill stack, you can actually put them into different categories, which is just a good way to mentally store what your skills are and think about how they can relate to each other. So if I was looking at different skills like VFX and filmmaking, I might group together versus like business, e-commerce, and marketing, which obviously I have to do running Compositing Academy. I have to know how to do these things. Otherwise, I can't keep creating value for people. So those are like two different skill categories, but if you combine them, you have a unique result that otherwise you might not have. So we can continue this concept a lot further, but let's keep talking about skill stacks first. So if you just look at a single skill stack, I'll just move this out of the way. If you have one skill, you're in one crowd. So you and everybody else, you have exactly the same skill. So it might be a little bit competitive if you're all, if there's 100 compositors applying to the same job and you have the same exact skill, it might be a little bit harder for you to get that job. So, you can develop your skills more as a compositor, which can make you more of an applicant for that job. So maybe you have additional photography skills as well, or you have a little bit of coding experience, or you're just really good at keying, or you're really, really good at paint outs. Something that really stands out is going to help you. So those are all skills within, I guess, the context underneath compositing. So that's how that relates, but you can actually take this concept further and broader by adding other skills as well. So if you look at the next slide, so if you have two skills, you're actually in a smaller crowd. So this is not necessarily aiming for a big studio. So just before I go through the slide, I just want to say that Blender, it's not used like by a ton of big studios, but it is a interesting combination of skills that very few people have, and that's why I'm using it as an example. And this will be in the Blender Nuke course, and this is why we're talking within this context. So that's just the pre-setup there of why we're talking about this specific combination. So Nuke and Blender, and you don't even have to be a master at the other skill that you're trying to stack onto what you've specialized in. So let's say you have Blender, so now you can create CG scenes on your own, take on unique tasks suitable for a Blender Nuke workflow outside of a large studio pipeline. So even big studios are actually used this combination of skills to speed up production where otherwise, because of various reasons, compartmentalization, just the slow process of a very large studio and moving things between lots of people, occasionally a skill like that, you can actually do things faster than sort of the giant machine that you're operating within. So again, everybody else has the same skill and now you are kind of separating yourself there. So that's just one additional skill and one simple example. Now, I'm not saying it's the best example for large studios, again, but it's just an example. So let's take it further, the concept. So 2 additional skills plus a skill stack category. It's kind of like beast mode. You can do a lot more things with those combination of skills. So you have Nuke compositing, we have Blender, but now you have an entire skill stack of, let's say, business fundamentals. So what does this give you? Everybody else, maybe just Nuke compositing, they have to work for studios. They don't know how to write their own contracts. They've never done trying to do freelance opportunities, direct to client work, which means you know how to do sort of business concepts like, let's say, generating leads or cold outreach to find your own clients. Those are skills that if you tie them in with visual effects skills, now you can actually demand significantly higher dollars per hour because you're essentially operating a mini studio. So you can see how just going from the very artistic skills to going to these more abstract or larger skill sets or categories of skills and combining them together, you create your own markets and your own unique opportunities and not having to fight in a very small, let's say, competitive space. So to go back just to 2 skills, like without even a category, let's just say you have 2 skills here. Leadership skill could be like a category, I suppose, but without getting into the semantics, I think the concept is easy to understand. Nuke compositing plus leadership skills, which is something like strong communication. You're an effective delegator. You can assign tasks and you can understand the entire process. Other skills that might be involved in that sort of sphere might be identifying characteristics of your team, like having a sense of empathy and what motivates people. So there's a whole bunch of things we could talk about there. But essentially, everybody else is just doing their job that's in front of them, but you are overseeing this entire process. So instead, you're helping everybody else in their role, which means you're doing a high leverage skill set because your decision, and not only your decision, but your skill and your ability to see what needs to be done has a higher impact on the team. That's why, supervisors are paid more, obviously, because they have a higher leverage skill set, which is going to affect everybody. So they need to have good decision making. So that is essentially high leverage skills. And again, another high leverage skill set could be something like coding and pipeline, right? So everyone's doing their jobs, they're using the tools that they've been given, but you're creating tools that affect the output of the entire team. So you're helping everybody else in their role instead of just doing your own role. So those are high leverage skill sets that you could stack on, for example, to something like Nuke compositing. That's it for now. So this can go much deeper, this concept. So I don't know if people are interested on this channel or not in this type of information being presented. So you guys can tell me, put a comment or hit thumbs up. So that's just a general framework. There's a lot of other frameworks we can talk about that might be useful. I'm going to put some more frameworks into the Blender Nuke course. So that'll be coming out again, like I mentioned. So if you want that, it's there. And that's about it.